Here in central Indiana, this is a big week in the Delphi murders case.
So it's been a little while since Rick Allen has been in court, and we actually have a hearing coming up this Friday where some major decisions will be made in his case. So I'm here to remind you where we left off and what decisions are expected to be made, as there are multiple issues to be heard at the Friday the 13th hearing. If you'll recall, Special Judge Fran Gull initially set this specific January 13th hearing to hear arguments on two issues. That was the change of venue and the gag order in the case against Richard Allen. Allen's defense attorneys requested a change of venue away from Carroll County because of the high-profile nature of the murders. And I don't see why a change of venue would not be granted. If any case warrants a change of venue, I think it would be this one, just due to how high profile this case is, especially within the Carroll County area. But who knows? The other issue is the gag order. If you'll recall, prosecution requested a gag order, and Judge Gull, in response, issued a temporary gag order until the hearing on the 13th. So I suspect the prosecution will have an argument as to keep that gag order in place, and the defense, who knows at this point if they're going to actually argue to release that gag order. But nonetheless, the issue will be heard on Friday. So we will either see the gag order lifted or nothing will change and those involved with the case will continue to be under gag order.
Judge Francis Gull had issued a temporary gag order, meaning lawyers, police, family members can't talk about this case publicly. Well, Friday, she could lift that order or keep everyone quiet until the case goes to trial. The judge will also hear arguments on a change of venue motion. Allen's attorneys want the trial moved at least 150 miles away from Carroll County because of all the publicity. The defense also has a hearing Friday on getting money to pay for investigators. And Allen's attorneys want lots of information, lots of evidence that the prosecutors are preparing for their case. 29 different requests in the court documents, names and addresses of witnesses, anyone who police questioned in the murders, plus phone calls, photos, documents, videotapes, anything the prosecution might use, and police personnel files, cell phone tower data. It's really a very long list.
So in addition to the gag order and the change of venue request, we have two more issues to address that have been raised by the defense. In early December, the defense submitted a request for additional funding for investigative purposes. These are public funds they are requesting for his defense. It's not clear how much money is being requested or all of the reasons why, but the document mentions expert fees and expenses. So in addition to the extra funding, the defense also requested that any additional requests for public funding would remain sealed from both the public and the prosecution. And the judge actually granted this motion, saying that hearings on these motions will be closed to the public and the prosecutor. So this is from the order: the clerk shall not permit any person other than the court and counsel for defendant to examine such motions, orders, and transcripts regarding such applications for the funds, the order reads. These motions shall be segregated from the remainder of the file in the case. So it sounds like the defense is trying to kind of do their own investigation here and keep all of that sealed from the prosecution and the public. So it does kind of seem like that matter is already settled, and regardless, any motion regarding public funding in the defense will remain sealed from us and the prosecution. And lastly, probably the biggest issue to be addressed is all of the information that the defense has requested from the prosecution. So on December 30th of 2022, the defense filed a supplemental motion for discovery and request for Rule 404 and 405 evidence. This all just has to do with discovery and what sort of evidence the state has to hand over to the defense. But man, they made a very, very detailed request for what specifically they'd like.
Allen's lawyers want prosecutors to hand over everything.
And they're planning to make their case to the judge Friday morning. ITMate's Richard Essex is following this case for us.
Richard Allen's lawyers want the names of every person that have talked to police about this case. They want every single police report that has been filed on this case. His court-appointed lawyers have the green light to hire a private investigator, and this 7-page filing is the roadmap they plan to use for his defense. The 7-page filing is the first step in the discovery phase of this case. Allen's lawyers are looking for the names of confidential informants, all phone records, witness statements, whether there was any electronic surveillance or recordings. Ken Eastwood, the Boone County prosecutor, says this is fairly standard.
My experiences in a major investigation such as this, the sheer volume of stuff you're putting together is going to take some time. As a prosecutor, we are required by law to give to the defense anything that we intend to use at trial, and anything that tends to show that the defendant didn't commit the crime.
Filing is asking for all the evidence collected about Allen to be turned over.
But as a prosecutor, generally, you give pretty much everything unless it's work product.
If the Carroll County prosecutor holds back information or evidence that he believes is not relevant to Allen and then tries to introduce it later at the trial, there's a good chance the judge would not allow it.
Because the last thing you want to do is say, hey, oh, now this is relevant. Now I want to use it in trial. Here it is for the first time. You don't, and the judge could easily say, you're not going to be able to use that. So what'll happen, so as prosecutors, you don't want to play that game.
Richard Allen and his court-appointed lawyers are expected to be in the Carroll County Courthouse Friday at 10 o'clock.